Okay, so for science for the next 3 weeks while I'm gone, you are going to do several things for each of the weeks. So for week 1, while I'm gone, so that would be November 2nd through the 6th, you are going to do a project that we did not have time for during our natural cycles unit. You know how you have those 3 blank pages in your interactive notebook? I think it's like 9, 10, 11 or something like that in your science book. We just left them blank because I knew we would come back to this. And I kind of like it because it kind of tests how well you remember your cycles. We're going to do a project, a writing project about the water cycle. And I love grading these projects. I love looking at them because it gives you a chance to kind of be creative with your science knowledge. So what I want you to do is you are going to, with your knowledge of the water cycle, right? And you can use your resources, you can use your interactive notebook. You're going to use 5 vocab words. So you're going to, I didn't pull the water cycle out. You remember the water cycle, right? It starts with the sun heating the ocean, the water, and then what happens to the water? It evaporates, right? It turns from a liquid to a gas, water vapor, rises up, goes into the atmosphere, it hits the cold air in the atmosphere, and it turns back from a gas to a liquid, which is called condensation. Good, you guys remember all this. Condensation, and then there's so much condensation, so much liquid that it gets too heavy and it precipitates. It falls to the earth in the form of rain, sleet, snow, hail, etc. It precipitates and then it falls back to the earth, and then what? It runs off, right? The runoff water runs back to the rivers or the streams that dump back into the ocean, and it starts all over again. It's a cycle that God made to keep us alive and to keep water hydrating the earth and us. So what you are going to do, this project is going to take 1 week. You're only going to do it in class. It is not homework. This specific project you are going to do individually. We'll do another project in pairs. This one you're going to do by yourself. It's going to take a week of science class. If you don't get it done, you might have to take it home, but there's plenty of time you can do it in class. You are going to write a story about the water cycle from the view as if you were a water droplet. Okay? Have you ever read like Magic School Bus books, like when you were little, like from the view of, okay. So you are going to use the things that I'm going to grade on. Creativity, right? Did you actually think and make a creative story, or is it like, completely boring, you just put the facts on there? You will have this sheet of paper. You need to fill it completely. Look, it is not that, right? It is not that long. A lot of people, I hand out these extra sheets to, a lot of people in their story, here's one from last year, use multiple pages. Some use like 2, 3 pages. This person just used like 1.5. It's really hard to get a good story going on just this amount. Some of you will, and if you write really small. But again, the length of yours should develop a full story. Don't just write like a few sentences. It has to at least fit to the very, very bottom line. If it is not to the very bottom line, then you get Yes, you did. Somewhere.
All right,
thank you. I hold our scripture test. Y'all ready for a scripture test, right?
No.
Okay, wait. I will give you time to study. Don't do it right now while we're learning about our science. Hold. Nobody get your scripture out. I'll give you some time to study. Okay. You need to go all the way to the bottom in your neatest handwriting. You are graded on length of your story, creativity of your story, neatness of your story, and if you used 5 vocab words. So you might use water cycle, evaporation, condensation, precipitation, transpiration, runoff water. I think there's 7 of them you can choose between, but you have to use 5. If you don't use 5, then you get points off in the rubric.
Can you use 7?
You can use 7. That'd be great if you use them all.
As much as you want.
You can use as much as you want. Here is what you may not do. When you are using your vocab words, you have to use them in a way that I can tell that you understand what the word evaporation is. So a bad example would be, because you're doing this from you're talking as if you were the raindrop. So you don't just say, I went through evaporation. I went through condensation. What does that mean? You went through that. You have to explain what is happening to you from a first person perspective. Does that make sense? Like what you are experiencing. So what might be a good example of something you might say as a raindrop if you were going through evaporation? Juliet?
I was lifted up.
Yes. Yes, you might. Exactly. And be creative. Like, what are you thinking? What are you feeling? What are you experiencing? Like, oh my, I'm just, I remember some person's story from a few years ago. The raindrop went through all these experiences, landed on when it precipitated, like, oh, I landed on this hard thing, and oh my goodness, someone's kicking this hard round thing, and now I'm flying into this net, and like the raindrop was it landed on a soccer ball and was going into the net. So there was also this story that the person had, that went through the net, and then now, everybody's gone from the soccer field. I'm sitting here. Oh, the sun came out. Man, I'm hot. I'm getting hot, and I'm being lifted off so does that make sense? I want you to explain what the raindrop is experiencing to show me your knowledge of the water cycle using the vocabulary words without just saying, I went through evaporation, whatever, stuff like that. That doesn't show me. Does that make sense? So here's this person's. I'll just read you like the first sentence just to show you. She says, hi, my name is Princess, and I am 5 years old. So one day I was in my class, and I was happy as can be at school and my cloud. And one day my teacher, Miss Judy, said, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so she made this up.
Are you allowed to?
Yeah, that's what you're doing. You're making up a story, right? Come up with a good storyline first, and then add the water cycle to your story, okay? So that is just a fun activity. So listen, here's what you're going to do on that week, the first week, so next week. On Monday, you're going to just sit and brainstorm your idea, right? There's no reason during this section of science you should be working individually. If you're going to get it done on time, use your 25 minutes or whatever science class time so you don't have to take it home at the end. So this is not a group project. You're doing this on your own. Sit, grab a piece of paper. Monday is brainstorm day. Think of some ideas like, okay, I could use a soccer game that was one person's. I forgot what hers was. I could use a story where blah, 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 this happens. Then you need to get out your Science Interactive notebook. Figure out how you're going to explain evaporation, condensate, whatever 5 you're going to pick, or 7 if you just want to be safe. Because if one does not get used right, it doesn't count. You know what I'm saying? When I'm grading it, I'm like, okay, they used the word condensation, but they did not use it in the right way. They obviously don't understand what condensation is, so that one did not count. So if you want to use an extra one, that would be great. You can use water cycle. That is a vocab word. So day 1 is brainstorming, okay? Day number 2, you're going to write a rough draft. Don't write your first one on this paper, okay? Just write a rough draft, because you're going to be like, okay, that doesn't make sense. Cross it out, erase that. Oh, that was a good idea, but that should go first. Take some scrap paper, do your rough draft. Wednesday we have chapel, so we don't have time. We don't have time. We don't do science on Wednesdays. Then on Thursday, you're going to write your final copy nice and neat, right? If it's 2 pages, you're going to want to staple it together. We glue the back page onto here, but staple it together. And then on Friday, you're going to illustrate your, and I've had some great illustrations come in of these stories. So it's really, really a great way. It shows me how much you remember of the water cycle, and it gives you a creative way to do that. So that will be week 1 for science. Questions? Yes?
Are we going to read it out loud to everybody?
Yes, you will. Only if you want. Okay? Yes. But every year we have some read their story, and they're just totally entertaining, and they're just silly, and it's fine. It's not, it's not, you don't get a grade for how you present it. But some of them, you may really like your story when you get done, or it may be really silly, funny one or whatever, and you might want to share it. But we will take time to share your stories. Questions? Jackson?
Is there a limit for how many pages?
There isn't, and I've had some pretty amazing lengthy stories. I think 3 pages is probably the longest one, but some people are really great writers and come up with some great stories. So write me some good ones so I can use them for examples other years, okay? Yes, more questions? Okay, great. So that's week 1 for science.